Ancient Greece, a land shrouded in mystery, one of the most ancient civilizations. Dorothy Mills once said, "The Greeks were the first great thinkers in the world. They were possessed of a passion for knowing the truth about all things in heaven and earth." A very apt and precise definition of the great people of ancient Greece, who left such great gifts for us, such as their philosophical breakthroughs, the Greek ideal values of beauty, freedom, and truth, and its beautiful art. This is the story of ancient Greece. Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. It's so good to be with you guys. Today we are on our second installment of speaking about ancient Greece. My name is Tim. Happy to be with you guys today. And our focus is on the city-state of Sparta. So Sparta was a great pivotal player in the role of ancient Greek history, all the way from its beginning to the end. And Sparta was the chief military state of ancient Greece. So this is really, of course, other places had military and soldiers and stuff like that. But in terms of Sparta, the Spartans were the cream of the crop when it came to the military because their whole goal was to raise an army. So men would be born and they were raised to be soldiers. And how Sparta came about was that they were the Dorian people and there were also the Helots. So the Dorian people show up and then they conquer the Helots who live on what would become the city-state of Sparta. And then the Helots are essentially enslaved by the Spartans and then they come to be known as the Spartans if they live within the city. And then since it was in the land of Laconia, the people outside the city but who are still part of the culture of Sparta are called Lacedaemonians. And in terms of Sparta, one of the important things to discuss is their laws and their governmental structure. And this all comes from a man named Lycurgus. I hope I'm saying that right. So, Lycurgus is essentially the summation of a variety of lawmakers, but he's the guy that they essentially point to discuss their laws. And how it worked was that he is known as the Great Lawgiver, and he was the brother of the king of Sparta at one point, and then when he died, his nephew was the heir, but his nephew was not quite old enough to be the ruler of Sparta. And so then Lycurgus promised that he would only rule Sparta in his nephew's stead until he became of age. Nobody believed him, but he proved it to be true, and when his nephew was old enough, he then resigned and then handed the reins over. And after he handed the reins over, he essentially decided to travel around the world to learn about the wisdom of other laws. So he went to the oracle at Delphi, which is dedicated to the god Apollo, I believe. And the oracle at Delphi told him that he was beloved by Zeus and that his laws would be the best thing for Sparta because since his time, Sparta had become corrupt. And so, what was the government structure that Lycurgus came up with? Well, in terms of the government, it was broken down into three parts. You had the king, you had the Senate, and you had the assembly. So for the kings, there's actually two kings, and that would be with a father and a son. And then for the Senate, it was 28 men over the age of 60. And how they would elect people to the Senate was, so there's already people in the Senate, and they need to vote for more senators. So what would happen is that the senators would essentially be blindfolded or put into like this box where they can't see anything, and then there'd be a variety of people that would go up on a stage, and then there would be shouting from the assembly. So essentially, the assembly's job is to elect the people who would be for the Senate, and they would basically rank the loudness of the shouts, and whoever had the highest ranking or whoever got the most like the loudest amount of shouts, then they would become a senator. And in terms of roles, we have the assembly who's electing the Senate, and then the Senate is creating the laws, and then the kings are commanding the army. So their role is on the battlefield. They create the laws of the state, and then they elect the people who create the laws of the state. And back to Lycurgus and his travels, he came up with customs for the people of Sparta. And so he noticed that there are some people who are rich and some people who are poor and destitute. And so he wanted to solve this problem for Sparta. So what he did was he confiscated all the gold and silver, and then confiscated all the land, and then he divided all the land equally, and then he got rid of the gold and the silver and replaced it with an iron currency. And the iron currency was so heavy that you can't hoard a lot of it. And so it turned the people of Sparta into a very simple people in terms of their clothing and what they wore, in terms of their food, and just the lifestyle in general. A very simple people. In terms of the Spartan education, as we know, they were focused very much on the military and creating soldiers. And it all began at birth. When a Spartan baby was born, they would be given to the elders of the Spartan community to be examined. If you were healthy and fit, then you would pass the check and then go on to grow up and become a Spartan soldier or Spartan, wife in terms of women. But if you were small or ill, then they would leave the baby to go die in a cavern at Mount Tigris. Right? It's a terrible practice, but their whole goal was to build an army. And if you can't fulfill that goal, then they saw you as having no purpose to live, essentially. And they were raised in the home until the age of 7. And by the age of 7, Spartan boys were given to the state for education in various activities, the essentials of exercise, especially reading, writing, and they were especially taught to endure pain and to glory in the victory of battle. So just endure all your hardships in so much as you can, and then take great pride in your victory. And then they also wore very little clothing to condition themselves to various weather conditions. So no matter where they were at, they would be ready because they didn't rely on clothes to keep them warm or anything. They were just used to any weather conditions that they would find themselves in. And in terms of the girls, they were educated completely in the home, and they were also trained in physical training and exercise, just like the boys. And their whole purpose and goal in the Spartan society was to create or to be good wives and mothers to the Spartans. And these women were very highly honored in Spartan society, and you know the husbands would often go to them to receive counsel for them. So women were highly respected in the Spartan society. And that concludes our quick look at Sparta. We're just getting a general outline of the beginnings of their culture. We'll, of course, go more over the history and victories and tragedies of Sparta in later episodes. But I hope you enjoyed this episode. Please like and subscribe so that when our next episode on Athens drops later this week, then you'll be able to see when we upload that. Thank you.